Hello, class, and hello, Naga. The article that I researched for research brief number 2, the topic of energy challenges, is titled Social Acceptance of Renewable Energy Innovation. This article is from the February 2007 edition of the Energy Policy Journal, and this was actually a special issue of the Energy Policy Journal, which covered primarily the topic of social acceptance of renewable energy. Um, the topics that this article covered, the overarching topic was the issues that have led to a need for changes in how social acceptance of renewable energy is thought of in the industry. It goes back to the 1980s and talks about in the beginning stages of renewable energy implementation, the issue of social acceptance was neglected because key stakeholders did not really view um, social acceptance as a major obstacle towards getting their projects completed. Um, the main reason why this occurred was because these key stakeholders misread the fact that there was wide public support um, through surveys and things like that for renewable energy, sort of as a concept or in general. The difference between this public support for, in general, um, renewable energy and actual social acceptance of this issue is the fact that it really changes when there's a wind farm right next to a local community, and you can actually see the effect that it has on the local landscape and um, things like that, the local community. Um, the article then breaks down the issue of social acceptance into three key areas. These areas are social political acceptance, community acceptance, and market acceptance. The article also goes on to talk about some other minor issues, but primarily what this article focuses on is wind power and the effect that social acceptance issues have had on implementation of um, innovation in the wind power industry. Okay, so social political acceptance as a topic is sort of like a broad overlook of the social acceptance issue. Um, the article states that policymakers have sort of been naive to the fact that at a local level, much must be done in order to implement a renewable energy project, even though on a larger scale or national level, um, acceptance for renewable energy is high. Um, the article suggests that frameworks need to be put in place by policymakers to ensure that public sentiments towards renewable energy are carried out at the local level. Moving on to the next sort of pillar of social acceptance is community acceptance, and that can best be summed up by the term "not in my backyard," or abbreviated to NIMBY in the article. Um, and the article states that wind power is sort of taking the brunt of this issue because of the high visibility and the visible effect that the wind turbines have on a community's surroundings. Um, the article also talks about it. It has this metric called visual impact per milliwatt hour of output, and renewable energy typically has a higher visual impact per milliwatt hour of output than do non-renewables. Mining for non-renewable resources is primarily done underground and out of sight of the general public. Because of this, it's thought that um, community members may be more willing to stick with non-renewables than make the switch over to renewables that they can actually see impacting their surroundings and impacting their lives in a tangible way. Um, Moving on to the third and final pillar of social acceptance is market acceptance. And a good way to think about that is how willing or able a market is to adapt to a renewable energy innovation. One way to increase the potential for market acceptance is to reduce things called barriers of diffusion, and that just means making it easier for a consumer to switch over to um, the renewable energy sources. The easier that it becomes for a consumer to be able to make the switch to renewable energy, the more accepting the consumers within that market will be to these energy innovations. Reducing barriers of diffusion also act to lower the amount of lifestyle changes a consumer needs to go through in order to switch to renewable energy. And this is not explicitly stated in the article, but the way I think about it is that if you think about not in my backyard thought that consumers have and the barriers of diffusion that can make it difficult for consumers to switch to renewables, they sort of both act in the same way, that it makes it a hassle for the consumer to be able to switch to renewable energy sources. So by reducing the not in my backyard factor or the sentiments that come with that for certain consumers, or reducing those barriers of diffusion, it'll make it easier for a consumer to switch to renewable energy sources and lower the social or raise the social acceptance of the of switching to renewable energy. A couple final points. Trust is also a key issue in market acceptance of renewable energy. If policymakers or designers of these projects are seen as outsiders of a local community, there will be less acceptance towards these proposed projects than if these people are seen as local stakeholders. And also, if we think about a national or a wider spread level of acceptance, to this point, the social acceptance has been categorized as more or less passive consent. And if we're switching to smaller scale projects, micro scale in the future, we will need to change the way that this passive consent is seen for social acceptance and make it more of a active role for the consumers. All right, that's the gist of my article. Thanks for watching, guys, and see ya in class.